Hey, hi, Kathleen. Welcome, everyone. It's as we go. You don't have to put where you're from in the chat. We've done enough of that, probably. But if you've got some reflections or questions, if you want to throw anything in the chat, we're going to dig into looking at assessing the different dimensions, especially cross-cutting, especially the practices. We're going to dig into engaging argumentation. That's going to be the big one we'll do here, and then cross-cutting concepts as well. But we're going to give a couple of minutes for people to kind of catch up and dig in. It's nice to see, I'm starting to recognize some of these faces now. It's nice to see some smiling faces again, back again for another night of nerddom. Good job, everyone. Alrighty. As we get started, I'm going to throw a website into the chat. So let me throw it in right now. So we're just going to keep using our website. We put a page together. So it's thewonderofscience.com/try. And so we're going to use that to throw all our resources on today. If you have a second, throw it in a browser, and then we can kind of keep it rolling as we go. Let's see. I think, Laura, we're about ready to go. Time is flying. Alrighty, so welcome. We're going to dig into, really, there are going to be two bends today. What we're going to do to start is we're going to look at assessment. So we're going to look at assessment. You can choose in the groups that you're in, you could either choose to look at a middle school assessment or you could look at a high school assessment. So it's kind of up to you as a group. You'll want to decide that. So the first bend is going to be looking at one that has clear practice. The practice that I chose is engaging in argumentation. That's what we'll dig into. So that's the first bend. And then the second bend, what you're going to do is you're going to get some student work, and we're going to look at the student work and see how well does this align to the standards. So those are kind of the two things that we're doing as we dig in today. As always, on workshops like this, it's always great if you can kind of stay engaged with the people that are there. The high functioning groups will be the ones where a person who's got a stable internet connection just shares their screen and then brings the documents up. So people who are kind of struggling with that, you can kind of help them along, and always be kind of over the top, just kind of sharing in what we're doing so that you can kind of dig in. We probably won't finish everything I want to get done, so I better stop blathering and then get to it. So as always, if something's not working, if you could just let me know and we will dig in. Does this show up for you guys okay? You can see this, Cynthia, is showing up good? Okay, perfect, awesome. Thanks, everyone. So what we're gonna dig into is assessing the different dimensions, assessing the SEPs and the CCCs. A lot of schools that have really been digging into NGSS, they really base their assessments just around the practices itself. As I said before, this is the website where we'll put everything. And so we're going to go there in just a second, and we're going to look at an assessment, read an assessment, and then you're going to start reflecting on that. So it's just think of that as our Google Classroom for the time together. But I want to start with a quick story to kind of frame what we're doing. If you're not familiar with the story of the navigators, we're pretty sure that all of the islands of the Pacific were settled in a relatively short period of time. And it was done on these really primitive boats with just sails and simple navigating. And so I'm going to use this as an analogy towards how do we figure this NGSS stuff out? So we're headed into a brave new world, and how are we going to make sure that we safely get there if we use that as an analogy? The first thing that was really important back then is that you would always have navigators who were really clear in their understanding of how to kind of read the weather, read the patterns, and figure out where we're going. And so as you're moving forward, the best thing that will help you kind of move forward in these other dimensions is another person. So finding other people to work with and throw ideas off of each other is the most important thing. It's the people. But there are tools that they used when they were navigating that were also super important. I wasn't familiar with this, but they used a stick chart. This is a Micronesian stick chart. And the way it works is each of these little seashells, there's one there and there and there and there. Each of those represented an island or an atoll. And then these sticks represent where is the current flowing and where are the waves moving. And so back in the day, once you had this, then you really had a powerful tool that you could use based on your navigating skills to figure out where you're going. And that's all the way from Hawaii to Easter Island to New Zealand, all of that movement. And so for me, the tool that we've used a lot during this workshop has been this performance assessment screening tool. And what I found when I was using that is it got me closer with my assessments to the standard. So you're going to look at a couple of the assessments that I wrote today. And so they were horrible before I started using the assessment screening tool, and now they're less horrible and much closer to the standard. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at those, and we're gonna move towards 2 other tools that I'll show you today in this session. The first one is going to be what are called the observable features of student performance. And so this is something that, man, I wish I had like 3 years ago in NGSS. The simplest way to think about it is that it's a rubric that really gives you all the elements of a practice on what we want kids doing. And so, for example, if we're engaging in argumentation, I know it's hard to see on Zoom, but there are really 4 parts that we would want students to do in middle school. We want them to make a claim, identify the evidence, evaluate and critique the evidence, and then give us some reasoning and synthesis. And so you can think of these 4 big ideas as like the 4 points on a 4-point rubric. So the observable features, Laura and I have aggregated those, and I've linked those up on the page as well. So you'll find one for every practice, and you'll also find ones for each of the different verticals, K2, 3, 5, middle school, and high school. So you can kind of see how they're going. So I think that's a powerful tool. The other one is going to be a feature analysis chart. Anybody in here ever use a feature analysis chart before? I'm seeing just one hand maybe. So what is a feature analysis chart? It's a way to compare student work to the actual standard. And so the way that we use it, you can kind of see, this is one I used with some chemistry students last week in California. What we have on the left side is the evidence statement, and then we just have student work across the top. And so it's a really, using a 1-0 rubric, it's a good way to get closer to the standard. So you'll have a chance to do that. We're going to use these 2 kind of today in our time. So example, I know where we left off last night was analyzing and interpreting data as a practice. And so there's a clear sheet for what that looks in kindergarten through grade 2. There's a clear sheet for what that looks like in 3 through 5, and what that looks like in middle school, and what looks like in high school. And so these are these observable features of the analysis, or student performance rather. And so I want to kind of get us going so we can spend a lot of time just working with each other and digging into the assessments. And so we're about to put you into a breakout group. When you go in there, the first thing you should decide on is, as a group, do we want to look at a middle school assessment, or do we want to look at a high school assessment? To give you a sense of like, what's the difference between those 2? It's going to be the same practice. We're doing argumentation, which is that old claim, evidence, reasoning. But the difference between middle school and high school, in middle school, they'll be making their own claim with evidence and reasoning. And as we move towards high school, what they're doing is evaluating other people's claims. And so that might kind of help you sway which way you're going to go. So decide on which one you want to look at. So for the rest of our time, you're going to really focus on this one standard and this one assessment, and try to just make that decision as a group. Where do we want to go? Once you've done that, let me show you where I want you to go next. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to head to that website again. So the website that we're on is thewonderofscience.com/try. If you just got here late, I'll throw it into the chat one more time. And so we're going to be not at this first section, because that's the elementary session that I just finished. So when you go to the website, don't click on the first ones. You want to move down to the second one. And what I want your group to decide is which assessment are we going to dig into? Is it going to be Las Vegas and Lake Mead, or is it going to be updating Alfred's argument? So let's say we choose this one. We're looking at Lake Mead. If you haven't looked at my assessments before, the first page will sometimes be confusing to teachers. It basically is the standard, the practice, the DCI, and the cross-cutting concept. And the assessment will actually start down below. So this is one where they're looking at Lake Mead and the level in Lake Mead, and then the growth of Las Vegas. So that would kind of be the phenomena. As you go through it in a group, it would be best if you just kind of read it together. If you want to, in some breakout groups, you could just say like, let's all read this on our own, or you could just have one person do what I'm doing, just like showing it to you, reading it, and then going through. It would be great as you read the assessment, if you had something to write with, if you just jotted some answers of how you might answer these questions as we go through it, or you could even do that as a group. Our key thing for reading it is we're really trying to get closer and closer into what is this assessment about. You saw it probably coming at the end. There's going to be a claim with evidence and reasoning for this one, and that'll be a consistent pattern that we have. So let me go back again and tell you what I want you to do. You're going to go into a breakout group. Be polite. Always introduce yourself first. Like get to know the people in there. Then decide, are we going to go middle school or high school? And then once we decide on that, in your 10-minute chunk of time, I want to make sure you've read the entire assessment. If you read it and you have a little bit of extra time at the end, start kind of talking as a group of like, how would our kids do on this? If I just gave it to them cold today, how might they do in the class that I'm in? That's another topic. I will just kind of lurk by and jump in and just kind of watch you guys work together. If you see me, just if you got a question that's burning, feel free to jump in and ask me. But can I get a thumbs up if you know what we're doing? I'm looking for at least 80% thumbs, and I'm there. Nice work. All right, so I will see you in there. Laura, if you don't mind launching that, that'd be great. And Laura, how many do we have? What do we got? It looks like 8 groups. Is that right?
12, there are 12 groups, and
okay,
they
cool.
have 5 or 6. And there, I don't know, people, some are down to 4.
Okay, but it looks like we're pretty good.
We're going.
Okay. I'm gonna run to the restroom for a sec.
You might want to mute your video. Hi, Lorena. Are you just joining us, or were you in a group and then kind of got kicked out of your room?
No, I just got in. Sorry, I'm late.
No problem. I'll just move you into a room. Give me just a second.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm having the same issue. My internet got lost and I just got kicked out. I am back here. I'm sorry.
Pablo, do you remember which room you were in, or had you not made it into a room when we did the jump?
No, I was literally just in right here. I didn't know about the breakouts.
Okay, so let me just add you to a breakout group, okay?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You bet. Hello, we are in breakout groups. Were you in a group and got kicked out of your room, or are you just joining us right now?
I'm so sorry. I just joined in right now. I was we were in the other session and I was running to this one, but I have some problems in between. So
Don't worry about it. I'll just assign you to a group. I just wanted to get you in the same group if you had already been in one. Here you go.
okay, thank you so much.
Awesome, thanks. Sorry, my computer was kind of crashing, Laura. Can you hear me now, Laura?
Yeah, I'm having way more connectivity issues right now than I did earlier.
Gotcha. All right, I'll see you in a bit.
Hi, I got kicked out. I think I'm in breakout room 11.
All right, let's try to get you back in there.
Thank you.
That's a small, yeah, it looks like that one might have lost a lot of people. Let's see, assign to 11. Hi, Melissa.
Hi,
Were you in a group or are you just joining us?
I'm just joining because I was in the wrong one. Like I checked,
Okay.
and when I was going to join, I said, "Oh my gosh, it was at 5, not at 5:55." And now I just saw it, so I needed to come. And I was in a group.
No worries. I'm gonna add you into a group, okay, so that you can help join in with what we're doing right now, okay?
Thank you.
Paul, I can't hear you.
I hate you. Let's see. No, thanks. Was there a question in there or not? No, I think we're good. It's weird that it doesn't open up all the ones with people in it.
You just have, it's because of the list. You'd have to scroll too long. You just have to use the caret to show.
Yeah, I know, but why don't they all open like that? It's just showing you the ones that it can
It's
show.
showing. It's always been like that.
Yeah, gotcha. Awesome, thanks.
You bet.
So we will have to use the first and the second one. Is that right, Laura?
It probably, yeah, if there's 12 groups, that would be the first two.
Gotcha. And the next one, I think we might have more time before I close the breakouts, Laura.
Oh, I just closed, I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Are you going to
We-
talk less? Are you going to have less presentation?
We'll see.
Yeah, I think you kind of went off a little.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. It'll take a second for everybody to come back. I just got to a handful of the breakout rooms, so I didn't get to all of them. So if I just did a quick survey, how many of you did the Lake Mead in Las Vegas? How many of you did that one, the middle school? So I'm seeing about a little over half, maybe. Anybody do the high school one then? Hands up if you did the high school one. That was on updating Alfred's argument. So it looks like maybe 70-30, something like that. Awesome. So the goal of that was to really have you look at an assessment. Rather than starting with a standard, we're really starting with the assessment itself. I could have framed it a little bit better. Think of these assessments always as summative assessments. So they're assessments that would be at the end of the learning. And so I think best practice when you're teaching NGSS is before you do all the lesson planning and what are we going to do, I think it's always good to take the assessment at the beginning and figure out, okay, where are we going to go? And then what are the kids going to struggle with for us to kind of get there? When we chose the assessments for today, what we focused on is we just went with claim evidence reasoning, and we're doing that at 4 levels. And so you'll get access to the elementary one, so lower elementary, upper elementary, middle school, and high school. And so you can kind of see how does argumentation change. That was kind of my goal, is to show you how argumentation changes over time. And so first thing you want to do is become familiar with that. Clara, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but like we had a good conversation. You were saying there's some terms and stuff as you were looking through it that your kids would struggle with. Do you mind kind of speaking to that for a second, Claire?
Yeah, so just looking at like the graphic organizer in the middle, and my group, we all kind of talked about like, because NGSS is so, like, the language is really important. Like when you say, even with the CCCs, but outside of that, when you say like talk about a mechanism or talk about a process, like that means something really clear. And so we were just kind of saying that we need a lot of practice with the students. So when they see, I know, okay, cause and effect, I know I'm going to need to talk about a process. I know I'm going to need to talk about the mechanism. And then here are all the things, like kind of the success criteria under that would need to be able to make that good.
Perfect. Yeah. So to build on kind of what you're saying, if any of you have taught, I don't know, like a IB or a MYP or anything like that, what we're talking about are command terms. It's like the term that says like, give me the mechanism. And then they have to know, is that what you're saying, Claire? Like, okay, a mechanism is going to be everything that connects my claim to my cause to my effect. Same thing with like, if we're doing an argument, okay, what is evidence and how is that different from reasoning and what is a claim? So like kind of the mini lessons write themselves of what we're going to do. But where we're going to go next though, is we're really going to get pretty granular, because when we think about something like claim, evidence, reasoning, those are just the broad strokes of what a good argument is going to have. But there's a lot more to what is the evidence, what does good reasoning have? And so for us to get closer and closer to what the intent of NGSS is we're going to use a feature analysis chart. So if you could find me in Zoom right now, and I'm going to show you what documents to click on to kind of get to the right spot. So if you could just find me here, I'm going to share my screen for just a second. So it was great in the groups that I went into. Somebody was just kind of taking charge each time and sharing their screen, which is super helpful. So if I kind of zoom into where we're at, so we are right here in the assessing with SEPs and CCCs. So we've looked at these 2 assessments. So we should be kind of familiar with those assessments at this point. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to use what's called a feature analysis chart. For us to get the right column, you have to remember what group you're in. Don't panic. When you go back into the groups, in the Zoom window at the top, it'll tell you what group you're in. So are you in like group 4 or group 5? But most of us are in this, I think, groups 1 through 10. So you click on this Google sheet like this, and what you're going to see when you open it up is going to be not your assessment. What you're really going to see, if you look at the bottom of this is the K2 band. We don't want to click on the 3 to 5 band because that would be upper elementary. We want to find the band that's going to be for our assessment. So if you're Lake Mead, you're going to click on the MS band, which is going to be right here. Or if you're doing that Alfred's argument, you're going to click on this high school band. I think one pattern hopefully that you're seeing is like there's way more parts to the high school versus the middle school. And the reason why in high school, we want kids not only developing a model, but also evaluating another person's claim with evidence and reasoning. So there's going to be a difference there. So let's say I'm in Claire's group. The first thing I'm going to do is make sure I'm in the right band. Then we've given you some student work. And so let's say I'm in, let's just make this easy. Let's say I'm in group 4. So if I'm in group 4, if you click on the group 4 at the top, it'll open up student work that you can look at. And so this is going to be the assessment that you were just looking, but it's going to have student responses in it of what patterns did they see? What is their mechanism? What patterns did they see in the data? And then more importantly, what's their claim, evidence, and reasoning? So this is going to be like the student response. And so what you want to do is you want to go back and forth between this and the student work. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, did the student make a claim to be supported about a phenomena and include the relevant content? And so if they did, and we're pretty sure that they did that, then in here you would put a 1. So you're going to give them a 1. This is, if you haven't done this before, this is a 1-0 rubric. And what we're doing is, so we're either giving them a 1 or we're giving them a 0. Somebody in your group will be really nice and they're saying, well, we should pretty much give them a half a point. Let's give them a half because they were kind of half right. We're not grading as we do this. So like, we're not grading. This is not like going on their permanent record. We're really just looking at student work to see how well that aligns to the standard. And so there are no half points. We either give them a 0 or we give them a 1. And so we're just going to go down for all these different bits and give them scores. And what you'll see will happen is we'll start to get a score along the bottom, which is not subjective, it's objective on how close are they to the standard. You'll also see on the right that there will be some times where the kids don't have anything, and it's not their fault. They don't have anything because when we wrote the assessment, we didn't prompt them for that information. Let me change all these. Oops, sorry about that. I'm changing all my 1s back to 0. And so if you don't see it, a lot of the time, it isn't the fault of the child, it's the fault of the teacher or me who wrote the assessment, where I'm not getting evidence from them. And so what I want you to do as you go through it as a group is just kind of switch back and forth between the feature analysis chart and then the student work. And what we're really deciding on is we're deciding on, did they get this or did they not? Don't just wing it. Like it would be ironic because we're talking about claim, evidence, and reasoning. So make sure when you're saying it's a 1 or a 0, that's literally a claim. Make sure you are able to back that up with evidence, and the evidence should come from the student work. Does that make sense, group, what we're doing? You want to find your column. So find your column, make sure you're in the right slide deck, and then we're going to kind of see where the kids are. And so good luck, and I'll be in to say hello and just stalk you a little bit as well. So good luck.
Hi, I just got home.
No worries, Pablo. Welcome back again. Laura will help you out. Yeah, we're gonna. If you got here a little bit late, we're just looking at some student work on some assessments. So Laura will get you added to a breakout group, right, Laura?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I just remember I was with Lorraine.
Was that today or was that yesterday?
Oh, right now, like just minutes before. It's just I was in the bus and I just arrived here.
You remember what group that was by any chance?
No, I just remember Lorraine.
All right.
I'm in group 11, if you can move me.
For Catherine? Okay, one second.
I got Catherine, Laura. Let me get that.
I got Catherine. I am looking for Lorraine.
I see a Lorraine in room 1. Lorraine Curtis.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Thanks, Laura.
Yeah.
And timing, how are we doing?
What time are we supposed to get done at 45?
4:50, I think. So I think we're good on time, right? Or not?
This is, yeah.
We have plenty of time.
They're going to come back and you're going to have 15 minutes. I would have given them more time in the breakout rooms.
Okay. Can you add to it or no?
I can't really.
Okay. Interesting. All right.
We don't have to close them. They may get into it and we can see how it's going.
Okay. All right. Yeah, let's do that.
Because it seems like the high school, it's going to take them a while to kind of. I think Paul also, like assessing the cross-cutting concepts, really looking at what's on the mini lesson pages for like the words and how it is. Because like I was thinking like you have like patterns is the cross-cutting concept for the,
Right.
but it's not just like what you notice, it's a deeper patterns. It's looking at patterns and data, but also they're talking about like a time scale in that evidence statement, like one is older than the other.
Which pattern is it? Do you remember?
Yeah, the one that you have a link to right now is patterns in data, but
So
the
which
evidence
one
statement
is
also talks about patterns in the way it's laid down over time.
Okay, all right.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi. How are you guys? Why no one is here?
Because we're in breakout groups. Are you just joining us right now?
Yeah, well,
I'll throw you into a breakout room, okay?
okay. I'm sorry. I thought that this one was starting at 5:25.
Nope, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
How's it going? Did you know I can't hear you?
I didn't know that.
How is it? How are those charts looking? I don't want to open anything up. I'm too nervous with my connection.
Mm.
Does it look like there's more high school or more middle school work?
Let's see. This is confusing with all the different things. So it seems like there's about like more middle school. Yeah.
What's the middle school cross-cutting concept?
Cause and effect.
Which cause and effect?
I think it's probably cause, mechanism, and effect. Why were you looking at the high school ones?
No, I just couldn't remember.
Yeah. I'll try to jump into ones that haven't gotten too far. Hey, Laura, I'm just gonna leave them open for a second. It looks like everybody's getting close.
Yeah, I saw that you said you're going to give them a few more minutes. I was going to say something to you around 40 after.
Gotcha.
Are they feeling guilty about giving zeros also?
No, I don't think they're high school teachers. No guilt. That's horrible. Sorry.
I know, I felt like you should have told the elementary teachers, don't worry, it's not like you're giving a 0 to a kid. These are all adults that
Right.
the assessment.
Yep. All righty. I don't know, another minute, maybe.
I can let you totally be in charge of that. Nice message.
1 minute left. I mean, they should all be the same score across horizontally, right? Because it's the same student work, right?
Yeah. There might be blanks because the group was doing a different band, but they should all be.
Yeah. All right, we should probably close them up.
I'm gonna go on mute.
Awesome, welcome back. Pablo, you made it for night 2, 2 nights in a row. Nice, get that card punched, nice work. All right, I hope the timing went okay. I wanted to make sure you had time to kind of go through the whole vertical. And so I was kind of judging where we were. For me, let me just take a look at this. So I'm just gonna share screen for a second. We're gonna look for patterns in what we see. Let me share screen for a second. So if we start, again, half of this won't make sense to you because you were looking at a different assessment, but what we're really looking for is trends. And so if we start with the middle school one, let's see, and let me get stuff organized. So on the middle school one, just like this is kind of the interesting point as we look at how you scored it, is I'm starting to see some patterns along the way. I'm seeing that, for example, nobody's getting 8 and 9. So as I look at this assessment, like nobody got 1s for that. I also see there's a lot of consistency across the groups that are going, but it looks like there's quite a bit of argument over here. Are they making a claim to be supported about a phenomena, and are they including the relevant core idea in their claim? So it is like in our groups, here's the spoiler. Everybody was looking at the same exact work. So we weren't looking at different students. And so we all should have the same exact scores as we look across horizontally. And so what does that mean? We're just having different interpretations of the data itself. Is somebody from, it could be any of these groups. So group 1, group 4, this is middle school, group 6, why didn't you give them a 1 for making a claim? Anybody want to unmute and tell us like why you went a 0 for that? It's hard for me to see. Yeah, go ahead.
Group 9, we looked at high school. So we didn't look at.
Yeah, for sure. But like any of the groups that were giving them 1s down here, sorry about that. You were giving them 1s for other ones, but you didn't give them a claim. Anybody want to jump in on that?
Sure. Group 6, he said.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
Okay, on group 6, he said partially. And that was the whole answer. It wasn't even a sentence.
Right, absolutely. So like I would go, if we go back to the assessment itself, like as I look at this, answer, is the growth of Las Vegas causing the drop in the level of Lake Mead? Is that what you're saying? The answer was partially. And so they're not really talking about the relevant DCI. And again, correct. I think, are you with me? Like, I think it's a bad question. The question lends itself to just a yes, no answer. or a partially kind of an answer. And so are you with me on this, team? Like, it's not about the student not understanding how to make a claim. There's no way they could make a claim. Does that kind of make sense? Rodrigo, did you want to jump in for a second?
Yes, exactly. That's what I wanted to go in, because like the question itself is a yes, no, or maybe question.
Right.
So you should get a yes, no, maybe answer. So
I think so too.
If we're not giving them a well-framed question, that's the answers we're aiming for. So
Perfect.
the claim is simply the answer to the question. You should not provide any explanation. So
Rodrigo, what about this? Since I have you on the line here, what if we just change it to how is the growth of Las Vegas affecting the drop in the level of like meat? How is that? Is that better? If it's just how is this affecting it?
Yeah, I think it would be a little better, but there we might debate on whether we are leading them to provide some explanation in the claim, which would actually make it a bad claim if they provide an explanation, because all the explanations should go in the reasoning. So again, we should reframe the question first. Again,
I think so too.
I think so too. That's one of the things that we ask in our group. Like,
I totally agree. I totally agree with your group. So again, as we go through it, sorry to cut you off, Rodrigo, but it is like, the whole point of this is not to like get this assessment perfect or to like understand the standard. I'm just trying to give you a tool. Does this make sense to look at student work going forward? A way to use this feature analysis chart, I gave you the same student work for all of these, but like you could imagine if this is my class, I could put a representative sample of my students. So I could put like 20 students in here across the top of the column, and then I start to see the patterns. I really love the way you guys were looking at this and digging in. Obviously, nobody's digging into this. The kids weren't giving any responses to the validity, sufficiency, and the reason why, just building on kind of what Rodrigo said, is it's not prompted for. So I wasn't asking them about that. And that's why we don't have any evidence from it. So again, like all of us are learning. And for me, like this is how I learned to improve the assessments is I write it. I see if I can get close using that assessment screening tool. But now when I look at student work, I get closer and closer to what the standard's really doing. So it's helping me improve not only the assessment, but it's also helping me improve just my understanding of the standard itself. As we look at high school, I'm seeing similar patterns. And again, there's only 4 groups probably that we're looking at it. We're seeing pretty good in the identifying claims and evidence. Nothing in the evaluating and critiquing for the most part. And then finally, some reasoning. And I bet some of the high school groups didn't have time to finish. Am I getting that right? Just because you were just rushed for time. Does that make sense? So Kristen, you wanted to speak to that for a second. How far did you get, Kristen?
We actually felt like sorry.
There's 2 Kristens. That's great. Yeah, go ahead, Kristen, who was talking. Go ahead. Kristen with an E at the end. Oh, they're both Kristenese. Never mind. I'll stop talking. Kristen with no last name. Go ahead.
Me.
Perfect.
Okay, yeah, no, we felt like we did actually get our way through most of that there. We didn't think that there was really maybe some questions framing them being able to do like a counter argument or really evaluate like multiple sources. So those were maybe where we felt like it was the teacher who just didn't ask those questions for the students to answer. But overall, we felt like we got through majority of it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Kristen. And I think you've got me thinking about like, if we reframe this, imagine that feature analysis chart that we were just looking at is not just like at the end of the unit, let's just grade the assessment and see how well they did. But if we think of that as a living document throughout the unit, that we're starting to tick those boxes, does that make sense? So like we're turning a lot of those 0s to 1s throughout the unit. So like now we're digging into counterclaims and now we're digging into sufficiency. So the whole point of this is to really give us a sense of how deeply do we want kids to dig into the argumentation. I would, as you think about CER, thanks, Kristen, as you think about the CER, please come back to this document again, because what you can see is what does it look like in high school? What does it look like in middle school? What does it look like in like grade, like kindergarten? Because in each of these, there is an assessment with student work that's kind of linked up. And so you can start to see that. I would say this honestly to middle school and high school teachers, one thing that we struggle with in secondary science is that they just haven't been getting enough science in elementary. They have been getting some content, but not these practices. So I think we a lot of the time have kids when it comes to claim evidence reasoning who are really at the kindergarten level. Are you with me on that? Like they're struggling with what is evidence, what's reasoning, what's claim. But can you see how high but the bar is? We want them critiquing evidence, what a new evidence should there be? Here's a claim, here's a counterclaim. I hope that makes sense. Like I think it was good that we chose one practice. Ashley, did you want to jump in on that? I see your question.
Yeah, like because I have been using CERs this year, and I think for me the biggest struggle has been not just like even in our group today, like we get bogged down by the details. So like the first one in high school is finding the relevant claim.
Right.
So into the DCIs, it was, I would assume was the history. So based on the history, so that was the only DCI in my head that we should have been talking about. But I think a lot of my kids, they get bogged down in the details and then the minutia and what it really means. And then they just completely go off track.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, it's new to them. So
for sure.
So yeah, it's been, and mine are much simpler than this. And I think for me, like the other thing for me personally, the fact that the way that the rubric, I guess, is set up doesn't necessarily follow the order in the document. So it's a lot of jumping around and you're like second guessing yourself.
Yep.
I mean, I'm more of a, this corresponds to that, this corresponds to that. Instead.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. And I think it is, to build on what you're saying a little bit, Ashley, like some of this doesn't lend itself to digital. Lots of times if you have them all right next to each other, we can go back and forth. But even having the prompt in it, so if in the spreadsheet it said, the answer for this might be in question 3, or the answer for this might be in question 2, that would help a little bit. But one thing I found with schools when we look at student work like this, let's say we've got 20 or 30, it takes us about half of the chunk of time to do the first 3 or 4. And then the other chunk of time to do the rest 26. Like it takes you a while to figure out what that is and then kind of to go forward. So I'm going to jump to, because we're kind of limited on time, I'm going to just jump to the website for a second and show you what I think are super valuable resources that you can start to use. So I'm going back to that page that I had shared before, these observable features of student performance. And so when you're really trying to figure out what do the kids need to do, all of the practices and at middle school through high school, you can see these charts for that. So if I'm looking at engaging in argumentation, what does that look like? If we're looking at like kindergarten through grade 2, like this is what it means. And giving the kids that as like, this is a really good straightforward rubric to what engaging argument should be. And I would imagine a lot of our kids have to start in kindergarten at the level of like, what is a claim? What is the evidence? Like what distinguishing between opinions and evidence and things like that. So that's one tool that I would say would be helpful. Another tool, I'm just gonna jump to the website itself, is like, as we're digging in, let me just choose any random standard. Let's say we're looking at this. So let's say we're looking at periodicity in a chemistry class. My goal is to have an assessment for all of these standards. I'm not there yet, but like you should be able to use an assessment that I have just as a really quick understanding of what the standard is about. You'll always know my assessments have Wonder of Science next to it. There might be other assessments that other teachers have written, but that'll be the one that I've written. Another tool that you could use would be the feature analysis chart. So we've done one of these for all of the standards. And so you could dig into that a little bit more to see specifically how deep we want the kids to go. But the key thing is, this is a process. Like we're learning how to do it, they're learning how to do it, and just don't panic because it's going to take us a while. It took us 30 years to figure out how to teach content. Now it's going to take us another 30 years to start teaching these other dimensions. But as long as you're on for the ride, I think we're good. And hopefully if we go together, we won't be lost at sea. Sorry about time. I was blathering a little bit. So gotcha. So I got to close up because I got another one my wife is telling me in 4 minutes that we got to do. So thanks for digging in. Best of luck. I'll always support you through the website. And so thanks so much. Cheers.
Thank
Have a great
you.
evening. Yeah.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for the wonderful things in the chat, people. That's wonderful.
Thank you, Paul.
Cheers.